Hello and welcome to Unacademy. I welcome you all to the Hindu analysis. Now, before we begin, we have some interesting articles today. Remember that the 22999 plus 1 month free extension offer is live right now. You can use the code IIS English to be tagged to our team. And if you need the PDF of this session, you just have to subscribe to this Telegram channel. Now, looking at the newspaper today, there are two to three articles or editorials which were there but were politically motivated, or would rather, I would say that they were not relevant for a UPSC aspirant. But still, we found, at least in text and context, a very good article on bio charcoal or biochar. And we'll talk about what is the potentiality. Very good topic for environment and how it can help the economy also. Then we'll talk about the SIR, the special intensive revision, which is happening in Bihar. A very interesting data point was there, and this is going to debunk a lot of the theories which are going around Bihar and the need for something like that. Happy birthday, Dipanshu! And thereafter, two topics where Trump is acting up as he does, and the tariff on India has been increased to 50% from 25%. We'll discuss what is the reason for that and why is the NSA in Russia. Then we'll talk about what has happened in Uttarkashi, and one very interesting, you can say, aspect being talked about, that it may not just be cloudburst but something else in that regard. And then two topics, one related to a bill which has been passed in the parliament and the concept of microplastic. It's a very interesting GS paper 3 to based, you can say, discussion, and all relevant for the examination in the longer run. Now, the first topic talks about biocharcoal or biochar. What is it? There are 5 to 6 parts here. What you have to understand, what is biochar? How is it produced is again relevant for you. Thereafter, you should also know how can it lead or help in climate mitigation. Because climate mitigation is something where the potentiality has been talked about here. And when we talk about climate mitigation, we also should know how can we use it in different sectors. The other text and context article on Taiwan was purely very specific Taiwanese news, which is not relevant to you generally. So this topic allows us to again revise something related to the environment, ecology, and environment and economy sector in that regard of your syllabus. Now, first things first, what is biochar or biocharcoal? Now, in a very simple or very straightforward language, it is charcoal which is very rich in carbon, and it can be produced through agricultural residue and organic municipal solid waste, meaning waste or organic waste to be very specific, plus agricultural waste can be produced into biocharcoal, which is called biochar. Now, the concept of biochar is extremely exciting for all activists and the climate scientists in that regard, because it is very fine grained, has a very strong capacity to hold carbon, but also if mixed with different, you can say, construction material, or with soil, or lined in certain, you can say, industrial activities, this could be a game changer, because it allows for us to make it a carbon sink and what is called as carbon sequestration. Now, sequestration concept is that you carbon capture is a word. So when you are able to take out carbon out of the atmosphere or out of the circular, you can say, cycles of, or the carbon cycle itself, it's called carbon capture. And when you hold down or hold it into the soil or in some form, it is called a carbon sink. Biochar or biocharcoal is being now talked about as a carbon sink. We'll talk about that. How is it the case? Now, as I said, there are multiple components. What, how, and climate mitigation. What is carbon biochar is something which I've already told you. It is a charcoal which is very high in carbon composition and is known to be a game changer in climate change. Now, the second question which comes through is how is it produced? So, herein, if you give organic biomass, this could be agricultural waste, this could be agricultural residue, and this could also be organic municipal waste, which is produced. I'll give you the data for this. When it is dried, grinded, and thereafter pushed through a machine which is called a pyrolysis machine. In very simple ways, it is the thermal decomposition of organic matter in the absence of oxygen. So in this machine, it is burnt without oxygen, and what you get is biochar or biocharcoal. You also get a biogas, which is syngas. You get bio oil, which can be mixed with petroleum and diesel, and you also get heat and electricity. Now, this machine, the convection based or this thermal decomposition in absence of oxygen itself, in itself is a very good solution for electricity generation. And there are multiple plants which have come up in Delhi and in and around Delhi, with which is using organic matter to produce electricity. But what we are more interested here about is the concept of biocharcoal. How does it help? And what can syngas and bio oil do? So it is a complete package in the sense that it takes wastes and it produces energy or fuel for us, be it in gaseous form, be it in charcoal form, or be it in oil form. And in the process itself, it can produce heat and electricity. Therefore, if used in the best way possible, biocharcoal on the process of producing biocharcoal itself can be a game changer for carbon sequestration and carbon capture. Now, is there potentiality to produce biocharcoal in India? That should be backed by data. Before I talk about that, what is biocharcoal and how is it produced? These two aspects should be: is it? What is it? How is it produced? Thermal decomposition of organic matter in the absence of oxygen is how it is produced. And what is it? It is charcoal, which is very high in carbon content. And the residual, you can say the byproducts of that process itself, all of them are extremely important. Yes, it has to be a two-way interaction. Come on. Yes, sir. Okay. Now, if you look at the data, we have 600 million metric tons of agricultural residue coming through. We have 60 million tons of municipal solid waste, which is organic, also being produced every year, which means that we have enough waste to produce biochar. As of right now, most of it is dumped in landfills or burnt openly, and that produces greenhouse gases and adds to climate change. If you are in Delhi and in and around any metropolitan city, you must have seen a landfill, and in landfills, open burning of waste is very common. Now, it is argued that out of this potentiality of 600 million and 60 million, even if we are able to use 30 to 50% of this waste, we can produce 15 to 26 million tons of biocharcoal, and this could allow us to remove zero point 0.1 gigatons of carbon from the atmosphere itself. Please don't learn this data, but understand that the potentiality is such that even if we use 50%, use these trends, even if we use the 50% of the waste which is produced, we can produce 15 to 26 million tons of biochar. And the bioproducts, which is syngas and bio oil, additionally can help us produce electricity and become a fuel. Now, what is syngas? Again, I'm using a certain terminology, you should know it. When we talk about syngas is a synthetic gas which is produced in the process of the thermal decomposition of organic matter in absence of oxygen, and it is a carbon monoxide, and carbon dioxide and hydrogen mixture. What it is argued is that if we can use this syngas in thermal power plants, we can produce 0.5 to 0.7% of the annual electricity generation, and that could help us in reducing coal, which is equally interesting. And bio oil can be mixed with kerosene, diesel, and petrol, and could also reduce our imports of fossil fuel by 2%. So if we look at the larger concept, let me round it up for you. We understand how, we understand what it is. Now, if you look at the larger concept here, bio oil has the potentiality to reduce 2% of our total fossil fuel imports. Syngas, which is again a byproduct of this process, can reduce 1 million, approximately 1 million tons of coal usage. And biocharcoal can be a very good way for waste management. And this waste management can produce 15 to 26 million tons of biochar, which can then further be used in as a fuel or as industrial raw material. Now, I have talked about how it is used as a fuel. This aspect is as a fuel. But if you look at the topic and if you look at the concept itself, it is saying what is the potentiality as a carbon sink or as a carbon capture technology. This is where we have to understand what is the use of biocharcoal over and above a fuel. And that is where how can it become a carbon sink? Now, the first way is that if farmers mix biocharcoal, and this is a very, very, very important slide for you because this can come in directly GS paper 1, GS paper 3. And if you don't know the usages, you will write very pedestrian answers. So, if in agriculture biocharcoal is mixed with soil and then water is added to the soil, it allows for better retention of water in that soil. Therefore, in semi-arid, arid areas, it can allow for better retention of water. Because stubble burning is a very big issue in India as it is. Stubble burning, stubble can be used to produce biocharcoal, which can then reduce the air pollution in and across Delhi and in the northern sector. So it can reduce stubble burning. Second, it can at the same point of time allow for better water retention in semi-dry and arid areas of the soil itself. It can then be used as a fertilizer because if you add it as a fertilizer, it automatically adds carbon and nitrogen into the soil itself. Then we have organic matter retention also increases if biocharcoal is added into this. So therefore, the aspect related to it being a fertilizer is not just about how it adds the nutrients back, but also organic matter. Then we have the industrial usage. I can categorize all of this as agriculture use. Now I can categorize all of this as industrial usage. In industrial usage, it can be added into power plants for absorption of carbon in the chimneys. So it is a bioabsorbent also. And at the same point of time, it is a good alternative. A lot of you already pointed that out for building material. It can be used in bricks, and it is argued that it can add 2 to 5% in the further, you can say it, we don't need more concrete, we can just add more bio charcoal in that regard. And last but not the least, it can also be used in water treatment plants because it has the potentiality to reduce the pollution in the water itself. So if you look at it, it is a one stop, you can say, solution for a lot of things, be it water pollution, be it soil pollution, and be it industrial understanding. So it has industrial usage also, it has agricultural usage also. So usage, what it is, how it is produced. Three aspects. Clear, everyone? Then we'll talk about the challenges of using bio. Quick, everybody has to be on their feet. Come on. Yes, the circular economy of how using waste, fuel, then using it as building material, then again waste. Yes, great. So these points will be very significant to write a good answer for a question which I've given you, and also UPSC can ask on potentialities of biochar. Now, there are three major issues in using biochar because UPSC they can ask you challenges and they can ask you way forward. So therefore, we now understand all the 4 5 fundamentals: what, how, and how it can become a carbon sink. Now let's talk about its challenges and way forward. When we talk about the challenges, first is it is underrepresented in carbon credit system. See, at the end of the day, there's a carbon credit system market or carbon credit market in which if you sequester and capture carbon, you get credits. It is not properly represented in. Further, standardized feedstock market and accounting methods for biocharcoal is not there. Therefore, there's no way to monetize biocharcoal. It can be used at a small scale, but to be used at a nationwide scale, you need monetization. You need a certain accounting method where people would invest into it. And that is where technology is still evolving, can be done in a better way. It has market uncertainties and it needs a lot of investment. For investment, you need stakeholders to look at its potentiality and at a large scale in that regard. But as I said, the problem is in carbon credit market, it is not properly represented and it is not considered to be that efficient in that regard. And that is where though it can change agriculture, it can change everything else. The idea is biocharcoal needs to be, and that is the way forward, needs to be a certain policy driven fuel. It needs more representation, it needs more understanding. So the research and development, the representation, and the policy driven push for biocharcoal should be. So before I give you the question, let me round up everything for you. Let's put everything on one slide so that you can use it for revision and you learn and revise in the session itself. And further, you can use it for a mains understanding. So, whatever we've done in the last 17, 18 minutes, we can put it on one slide so that we have one comprehensive understanding. Can we do that? Yes or no? Uh, Shivani, you should buy this version, the first edition only, because the second edition will come after the 2026 examination or just 1 month or 2 months before it. So you should and you have to, right? Vani, I hope that is uh, clear enough for you because April to April the editions will come through, so it will be too late for the next exam. Yes, great. Okay. Now, verifiable carbon removal pathway, equipment, benefits should be recognized. Now, what have we understood? Biochar. Yes, this is how you make notes also. A lot of students email us how to make notes in the examination. Now, first is, what is it? It is charcoal produced through the method of, we'll put it in how, which has high carbon content and high retention in soil. How is it produced? Thermal, you can say thermal degradation, or let's use the technical term for it, which is thermal degradation in absence of oxygen. And it produces three things, or rather four things: thermal decomposition in absence of oxygen. Right? What it means? It produces syngas, bio oils, it produces biochar, not also produces heat plus electricity. Now, All of this is the static portion here. What is it? How is it produced? Now, usage as a fuel, rather, we'll say its usage is both in energy sector, in agriculture, in industry, and in climate mitigation. In climate mitigation, right? Applications uses what? Here, it can be used to in thermal power plants produce electricity, right? In agriculture, water retention plus fertilizer. In industry, building material and the real estate sector. Climate mitigation, sink to capture carbon 800 years of decomposition cycle, right? And some of you added the points: reduced dependency on coal. Very good. Reduced dependency on coal. Very good. Then the biochar applications have been seen where feedstock to improve digestion. Very good. Tanushka is saying it has been used for improved digestion, right? Methane emission in livestock. Reduce 1 million tons carbon sequestration. Okay. You can add that, Rohan, if you want to. We can also talk about how syngas can, in a way, help us in reducing 1 million coal bio oils, 2% reduction in oil imports. So I think you all have understood this aspect quite well. This again becomes a static portion. Now, what is the challenge which we face? What is the challenge? Challenges is it is not properly represented in carbon credit economy. At the same point of time, it needs high investment, which is not there. Further need more R&D in producing biogas in that regard. And in the end, what is the way forward? Way forward would be policy driven push, more representation and awareness, and the same point of time, more understanding on how to use and integration in global credit market, rather carbon credit. We can add, yes, infrastructure for segregation of waste and livestock management and agricultural waste management. So I think now you understand how we can bring all of this information, 1200, 2000, 2500 words, into one page. This is called notes making. I have been very clear. I'm very concise. I have not taken out 500 words and made it 200 words. Rather, I have brought it down to 100 words. That is where it is very, very important that your notes are not as bulky as your main source itself. You can talk about PLI, but PLI in biochar makes no sense. It is rather the internal economy which has to be streamlined rather than PLI. PLI is not the right word, Manisha, for this, because industrial level production of biochar will not make sense because it has to be more localized in that regard. Lack of coordination between agri. Yes, that is also true, Anushka. You can use that point if you want to, which is the R&D word. Are we clear? Now, if UPSC gives you a question like this, what is biochar or what is biocharcoal? How can it be used in climate mitigation and sequestration? You can do this. Meaning, this is a very realistic question in GS paper 3, where environment and economy come together with science and technology. So you can get a question like this. You can also use this information for any question related to stubble burning. If you don't know this right now, or maybe you know it, there will be a certain season which comes in the Hindu newspaper. That season will come between November, December, February. On a day to day basis, you will get one article on stubble burning, Delhi pollution, and the issues related to AQI and PM 2.5 and PM 10. That is a standard protocol. We know it because we've been seeing it for now 5 years. Interestingly, the whole concept has changed. A lot of things have changed, but Delhi pollution has not changed. So they will talk about concept pelletization, biocharcoal. Same concepts will be that the stubble should be resourced out of the farmer and then produced into biocharcoal. But nobody really cares. In Punjab, Haryana, and that whole UP sector, stubble burning is very common still because the cost of acquiring that stubble is very high, or giving it to the government is very high. So remember this point. Anywhere, if they talk about waste management, do use biocharcoal as an example. What I'm doing here is, unlike just reading out or explaining the article to you, I am giving you structures in which you can use it in your examination. Remember, we don't have to become a current affairs specialist, we have to clear the examination. So, in every article, my understanding is to break it down in such a way that you can use it in the examination in the best way possible. You can become a specialist of Bihar politics, but that will not do you anything. Rather, you should be able to use that data in your answers, in your mains understanding, so as to write the best way possible and get rank one. That is the purpose here. Got it? Can we move to the second topic? Yes? Okay. Now, you let me give you a little bit of context. There has been a lot of discussion here previously also about what is called a special intensive revision, SIR, which is happening in Bihar as of right now, because Bihar is going to go in election in October, November specifically, and this will be done across India. It will be done across India. So the Election Commission is a constitutional body which has been given constitutionally the power to produce the electoral roll, and under the Representation of People's Act 1950, it also has the power under Article 21 to revise the electoral roll from time to time, because there is migration, there is death, there is, you can say, birth, death, and the population profile keeps on changing, and you need to be 18 years and older to be a voter. So therefore there's a need for revising the electoral roll. Now, the SIR in Bihar has come into a lot of controversy because of three reasons. The first is that the question was, does the Election Commission have the power to do this? There is no doubt, yes, the Election Commission has the power to do. It can be done before a Lok Sabha, or you can say state legislative assembly election. It can be done for special purposes, as it is being done for special intensive revision. It can be done after census to, in a way, revise the whole electoral roll. It can be done. It, and the Election Commission is its rights to do it. But the other two reasons are the problem. First is timing, which is a state like Bihar, where there's a lot of migration, and the election is just 2 3 months away. It becomes problematic for people to go through this process just before the elections, and it could have an impact on the electoral, you can say, vote share, and therefore the election results also. But what is the real problem here is the manner in which it is being. See, in 2003, SIR in Bihar was done, but that was done on a door-to-door campaign basis, where the Election Commission you can say authorized officers went to the houses, and door to door campaign was done to revise the list itself. Now, if your name is there in the electoral roll off or on, can say a certain cutoff date of 1st July to 2003 or the last revision of 2003, you don't need to produce any document. But after 2003, if your name has been added into the electoral roll, this time the door to door campaign is not there. There is a certain form which has to be filled. And that form needs proof of citizenship, because citizenship of this country gives you the right to vote in this. As a citizen, it is your right to vote. This is the most important aspect here. And within that, there's a lot of controversy. Though Aadhaar has never been argued as a proof of citizenship, it was for benefit transfer, it was for DBT, it was for stopping leakages. But the idea was that because Aadhaar is not allowed, after 2003, whoever was added into the list, they are finding it difficult to fill the form. Two reasons are there. First, you need a photograph. You need literacy to fill a form. People are selling their food, are selling their you can say assets to fill this form to remain in the electoral roll. And second is, what is being filled in the form, most of the people do not have the understanding of what is being pushed into. Meaning, if I fill a form for you and you don't understand Hindi or English or any other language, you will not know what I'm actually pushing through. So the manner in which now you have to prove your citizenship, it is mostly on the onus of the state to prove that you are not a citizen. But here it is on the citizen to prove that he's a citizen itself. The idea here is that the manner and timing is being questioned. Now, the first draft has been released after the first cycle of filling up the form on 1st August. And now the Hindu newspaper has a specific type of article, it's called data point, in which they take a lot of data, analyze it, and give it to you. Now, yesterday, I don't know if there was a discussion on data point or not, but yesterday's discussion was on literacy levels and the 67 lakh people who have been removed from the electoral roll. 67 lakh people have been removed in the first cycle of, you can say, revision. The question is how to explain the 67 lakh. How to explain the 67 lakh people being removed. So the government has given a certain breakup where it's saying that most of the people are deceased, 31 lakh, majority have died. And the second majority here is that they have permanently migrated out of Bihar. Then there is 8 lakh people who are unaccounted for, neither died or neither, you can say, permanently left or permanently migrated out of Bihar. Now, this data point is interesting because it further analyzes the 67 lakh data based on gender. And as it turns out, there is now a very big issue and a very dangerous trend which is emerging in this data, as much as it is diseased and whatever it is. So, the two reasons for which this revision has been done, and Election Commission is arguing that, see, 67 lakh people are out. The reason why we're giving is what? First is death. Second is migration, yes or no? Based on the conclusion of what the Election Commission also filed to the Supreme Court, along with looking at the data which has come through, is this the two reasons for Bihar 67 lakh unaccounted for or reduction? Death, which is people died, and people migrated out of the state itself, right? 8 lakh people, we don't know. Maybe they are illegal migrants. That's a separate issue altogether. Now, if you look at the data, it turns out that in this 67 lakh, which people are even arguing is close to a crore, there are more women who have been deleted than men. Meaning, 25 lakh fewer men are there in the list and 31 lakh fewer women are there in the list. Meaning, if you go by the data which has been given, gender wise, there is a bigger reduction in women voters than men voters. Meaning this revision shows that the number of women are more who have been removed than men. So the conclusion or the basic data shows women have been removed more than men. Basic conclusion. Now, this should automatically mean, let's use our logical understanding, and you question this. You have to say yes or no, sir, your logic is right or not. This should automatically mean that the women should have died more because death was more, and women should have migrated more because men comparatively death should be lower and migration should be lower. If this is the logic, right? If 67 lakh people are reduced because of death and migration, and women have been reduced more than men, therefore women should have died more and migrated more. Is this logic sound? Basic logic, not rocket science. Very simple, straightforward logic. This is a classroom, not one way interaction. Come on, tell me. Is this logic complete and is it right? It is. Yes, because our initial conclusion was, and election commission's conclusion is, death in migration is the reason for reduction. Now, if that is the case, then death of women and migration of women should be more. Now, if you know Bihar and if you know anything about migration in India, you can automatically spot the paradox here. You can automatically spot this paradox. Now, there should be a question mark on your head. Okay, this is not adding up. Why? See, the reduction 37 districts out of the 38, every district there is a reduction in women numbers. The maximum is in Gopalganj, where there's a difference of reduction in men and women is 6%, meaning 17.8% and 11%. So 6.8% difference, 17% women went down, 11% men went down. Now, this means that if it is except for Bhojpur, if every district has shown a negative growth, this is a phenomenon which is happening across Bihar itself. Now, let's take into account death. And this is where the first paradox or the first anomaly comes through. Except for the COVID-19 period, the death rate of men and women has been very similar in extremely similar. So between that 5.7% to 6%, this gap only emerged because of COVID, which cannot account for such a big reduction. The data point argues that death rates between men and women has been more or less similar. So death cannot account for a greater reduction in women than in men. Now this means that it has to be migration, because migration is the second biggest reason for the reduction in the numbers of voters in Bihar. But as it turns out, in India, all migration is single male, or most, not all, single male circular migration. What do you mean by single male circular migration? Single male circular migration is the male member leaves the rural sector, leaves the family behind. He then goes to the urban sector, does rickshaw pulling, does some industrial activity, and then when the sowing season is back, he's back into agriculture. After the harvesting season, he will go into industrial sector, off season. Then when it comes to sowing, he will be back into agriculture. That is why circular. He is both the part of the primary and the secondary sector. He is not just part of one sector. And therefore, in Bihar, which accounts for most of the labor, which is even used in Karnataka, Haryana, in Punjab, in South, the data again is not adding up. The data is not adding up because if you look at the migration data from Bihar, as it turns out, For every 100 male migrants in India, 31.4% migrated from another state, and they were male. When you look for the women, the data is only 7.2%, meaning 31.4% of any or any state, any data, rather any state, 100 men if taken, 32 men or 31 men would be from the other state, from another state. If you take male into consideration, if you look at the female labor, that will only be 7% or 7 out of 100. So if this number is so specific and is based on government data itself, and is even more true for Bihar, where this number would be even lower and this would be higher, it cannot be that more women migrated out of Bihar than men. Let's be very honest. Let's be very honest. More women would not have migrated out than men. Now, here basically, see, marriage based migration, Namita, is there. But again, that cannot match the amount of migration which is happening, or the volume of migration which is happening with regards to the men. So, what has happened here? The whole argument here has collapsed. We started with a certain theory. The theory was 67 lakh people are not there. Therefore, migration and death should be the reason. When I analyzed that data, I saw that women were reduced more than men. Therefore, the death and migration data should match. This means that the death rate of women should be higher, migration rate of women should be higher. Death rate is equal to men, migration rate is substantially 5 times lower than men. Then how do I explain this? Then how can I explain this? And this is where the Hindu argues, looking at the data, and what data point has been given yesterday in the yesterday's newspaper is that women literacy is at 55%, which is much, much, much lower than the literacy across India. And compared to this means that they were not able to perform vis-a-vis men, and therefore this is not an accounting error, this is not an error, or this is not migration or death. It is purely self enumeration problems, and because this SIR is based on a form, women are not able to fill that form. So lower literacy rate is leading to higher deletion rates. In the districts where more women were voting than men because of feminization of agriculture, because of men being migrants, this data is only suggestive of one thing, which is yes, it is a gendered exclusion because of literacy. Now you tell me one thing, it's a value driven question, it is a rhetorical question. It is a rhetorical question. Really doesn't matter what you and me think as of right now. Is this justified, or is this correct, or is this democracy? If my MP can be an illiterate, can be a criminal, my MLA can be a criminal and a illiterate who does not have any understanding, angutha chap, then systemic issues which are not allowing women in Bihar to get literacy, a failure of the governance in Bihar itself, the governance at the central level, the regional disparity, in turn leads to reduced numbers of or disenfranchisement of women because they just can't fill a form, then this is not true democracy. Because then if literacy and filling up a form by one's own hand is the reason, then let the MP also file his own nomination and MLA file his own nomination if he even knows how to write his name. This is it's like saying, that we will transfer you subsidy only if you have an account in American Express or in for example Citibank. It's exactly like that. That only if you have a bank account in Citibank or in the Swiss bank, we will give you the subsidy. The exclusion rate is so much that it is automatically going to remove. So very simply, here it talks about gender inequality, exclusion, literacy, and how literacy is impacting electoral politics will then further impact Bihar politics. And then, therefore, because male migration is so much, the percentage of voting will go down also. And if that will happen, that will have an impact on Bihar elections. What's so special in Bhojpur that there's no deletion but adding? Bhojpur is that district where there you have more literacy in that regard. It's multiple important towns are there in that sector. That is why. It's not birth and death rate. Sir, why SIR revolves around only women and women centric like marriage, death? Anu, we are not talking about that. SIR is not about women. It's not about marriage. It's not about death. SIR is about determining who's a citizen who should be able to write, who should be able to vote. Data reveals to us that women have been excluded more. Now there needs to be an explanation for that. That explanation should be that they're dying more because the death based revision is very high, or they should be migrating more because the migration based data is very high, 31 lakh and 25 lakh. But as it turns out, death rate is similar, migration rate is very, very low. Therefore, the inclusion of women at a high, or rather, the exclusion of women at a higher rate can only be explained by the fact that in this after 2003, which the women are not able to fill the form. So, though they are citizens, they may not be able to fill the form. The idea is very simple. This has to happen across India. If in one state 67 lakh people can be removed and more women are removed, in every state except for Kerala, women literacy is lower than men literacy. And in that case, women will be excluded even more. So, if you look at the data for India as a whole, women and not even women, all vulnerable groups, SC, ST, the PGT, women, the people who are already systemically excluded from the system will find it extremely difficult to do something like that. Get my point? That is the whole point. This very interesting data that way. This data point is quite revealing that way. This article, it's very, very, very revealing. That how can you explain something like that? Are we clear about this? Don't have to do a thesis on this. Tomorrow again we will discuss this because it says as the last line, SIR excise analysis we will discuss tomorrow also. So tomorrow again I'll be there discussing some other aspect here. But this is where the gendered exclusion is being, right? Okay. Now, first two articles sorted. SIR bio charcoal. I want everybody's consent here. Yes, sir, we are sorted. We understand it. Yes, sir. Very good. Now, two articles which have to be read together, which is Trump raising the import taxes or the import duty in America to 50%. So 25% as it is India was given as part of his, I don't know what type of politics it is. It is his tariff wars and the weaponization of tariff in that regard, which has only backfired him only and has mostly destroyed his economy in the short term in that regard. But because of NATO pressure and because of Russia, Ukraine, and the ability of Russia to survive a 3 year long, you can say, war with so many sanctions, and somehow Trump turning against his best friend, Putin, the tariff on India has been increased to 25% plus 25%, 50%. This will come into effect immediately. This will come into effect after 21 days. And when Trump was asked what is the reason for doing this, he said because India is importing Russian oil it has to reduce it, then only it can do it. Now, this is called developed country syndrome or superiority complex. See, the US and the West as a whole has always dictated a lot. We are one of the best example of as a colonial, as a you can say decolonized country and having a colonial experience of 200 years. If you take into consideration the Portuguese 400 years, this is pure colonial high-handedness, imperialistic politics. What is imperialism? Imperialism is a process of indirect control or a process of domination to get some form of concession. Imperialism leads to colonialism, right? Colonialism is direct control, full control. Neo-imperialistic practices were very common during the Cold War period, which is the concept of using the IMF, using the World Bank, using the WTO, what is called the McDonald's diplomacy. In the name of oil, America destroyed the West Asian sector. And Trump has brought back that high handedness again, where using global, you can say connected economies, integrated economies, and now tariffs, he is trying to get what he wants. But what is interesting is he does not know what he wants also, because that is Donald Trump for you. He initially went with 25%, then gave India concessions. A bilateral agreement is going on in the background. Just in the past 30, 40 days, he has become extremely conscious of Russia and India connection, though himself being very close to the Russians in his first term. Now, the idea is very simple. Where is the data which proves that India is taking a lot of oil from the Russians? Remember, this is pure colonial neo-imperialistic pressure as it happens. Developed West always wants you to comply. Their problem is our problem. Our problem is they're not. Is only our problem. So this 25% has come because of this data. See, since the Ukraine invasion of Russia, our oil profile has changed quite a lot, where we used to take close to 80% of our oil from the Persian Gulf countries and close to 0% from Russia. Since the invasion, there has been a reversal, wherein we are now importing 40% of our oil from Russia at a very cheap rate and close to 40% from Persian Gulf and others in that regard. If you look at the Russian oil exports, this is very telling that 1% it used to export India in 2020. And today, 28% of all exports of the Russians or Russian oil is towards India, even higher for China, 36%. And there is a major reduction in how much EU used to, which is 46%, 41%, 9%, 6%. Now, what India has been calling out for a very long time is that it is not just us who is taking oil from Russia. China also takes it. China and Trump conflict went to a certain point where China said, "Well, you will put tariffs on us, we will put tariff on." And this is where what India is arguing is India is being singled out. What the Indian argument is, and which is quite justifiable and correct also, don't just look at oil. If you take into account oil, coal, and natural gas imports, China is the biggest, but EU is bigger than India. Oil has reduced, gas hasn't reduced. So, what India's argument is if you're putting 25% on us, put on you also. Because we still are the third largest importer, EU being the second largest. And this is where India has been quoting the you can say the hypocrisy of the West here. Double standards, hypocrisy, whatever you want to call it. The hypocrisy of the West here is they are still importing, but they are okay. That is where holier than thou. That no, we will take because our economy is dependent on it. We are diversifying our oil imports. They have a problem with that. So please do understand one thing. This is pure biased retaliation and jealousy based retaliation. Trump said India is a economy which is in tatters. All made up rhetoric. Trump is not the right person to get your data as it is. Dumbest person in this world in that. He has already destroyed his own economy. Is now he's doing all of this to just distract the people of America from the Epstein files in that regard. Americans, as it is, are the lowest IQ in the world, but because they're a superpower, they control most of the thing. The idea is very simple. This is jealousy towards Indian economy, its power, and its, you can say, growth pace. And because if I can get cheap oil, why not? I have a right as a sovereign country to diversify my oil profile. I am still taking 40% from other sources. But you tell me, who are they to tell us where should we get our oil from? More than that, if this is so, then put something on the Chinese and also the EU. The same NATO members who are saying that India should do show restraint towards Putin, don't take anything from. Their economy was going into a recession. Germany and all these cold countries were struggling because of the shale gas and the oil, natural gas exports out of Russia being stopped. That is not a problem. India's import is a problem. And in that context, India has also given a very befitting reply, which is that our NSA is going to Moscow and he's going to meet Putin. And because Putin is coming to India later this year, he's going to orchestrate a lot of very interesting things. This is a pure defiance of the Trump order in that regard. You want to impose on 25%, let it be. What will happen maximum? You are going to see hyperinflation. We are still a self-sufficient economy when it comes to most of the things, and we don't take oil from you. Therefore, S400 is going to be now more expedited, very important in Operation Sindoor. A trade deal is being talked about. There is also conversation with regards to oil imports, and Russia has very well said that India has all its rights to diversify its export profile. It's a sovereign country, it has its own understanding. F-35 was denied, which is already something which Trump has taken to heart. And there is also one more deal which is going in the background, wherein they are trying to figure out how natural gas exports can be increased. So therefore, Doval going to Russia is a clear indicator of how India is doing the hard politics here, hard driven, you can say hard driven diplomacy here, and therefore, be it THAAD, be it S-400, and be it multiple defense deals, the presence of him in Moscow is a clear indication that we don't care. So this is again something which will develop further. Tomorrow I will again be there with some update about this, but I'm just giving you an indicator of what is actually happening. Clear, everyone? Does this make sense? What is happening? Why this escalation? What is this issue in that regard? So these are interesting things we keep on developing. Don't make notes on this right now because this will keep on developing further. Only when this topic is complete, then make notes. Current affairs, what happens is some topics evolve over months. So you should wait for it to figure it out. For example, this is not the end of this concept. It needs to be further reached to its conclusive point. Because 21-day window is there, will this 25% actually come into context? Or Trump will finally come back to his senses? Or somebody is going to give some understanding to Trump? Or there will be something which is going to happen? There will be something which will happen for sure. And that is what we are waiting for. And in most cases, I'm not getting a US visa because the way I criticize Trump as it is. Okay. The only certainty here is I'm not getting a US. The uncertain aspect is where does this whole concept go? Right. So I've called him a neo-fascist and multiple times dumb. So वो तो नहीं मिलने वाला. ठीक है. Now let's talk about a very devastating news which has come through from Uttarkashi. I'll show you the images to tell you the gravity of what has happened. Uh, we have been the word which has been used for what has happened on 5th and 6th of August in Uttarkashi. The word which has been used is cloudburst. Now, the question is, how does IMD define cloudburst? And this editorial questions, is there, was it really a cloudburst or some man-made disaster? Now, what has happened is very simply, in Uttarakhand, Uttarkashi district, there has been a cloudburst, and that cloudburst has led to 4 people killed, 60 people feared washed away. Indian Army personnel have also are still missing, and the Kheer Ganga river, the volume of water increased very quickly. What is being argued is, looking at this argument is that in the upper sector there was a cloudburst, the volume of water increased, and that in turn led to this disaster in Uttarkashi. Now, what is the technical definition of a cloudburst according to IMD? If a large volume of rain of at least 10 centimeters in an hour over 10 square kilometers happens, it is called a cloud. It is called a cloudburst. This is very, very important for you. What is a cloudburst? 10-10 rule. Now, the question is that IMD actually has no station in Uttarakhand near Uttarkashi. Therefore, IMD had no way to decide or tell that was it a cloudburst or not. Meaning, they cannot determine this 10 centimeter in 1 hour over 10 square kilometers. And this is where, because at this altitude, the weather stations and radars are very, very, you can say, scanty or are not there itself. The other aspect which is talked about by experts is, this may not be a cloudburst. This may be just heavy rainfall. But because in Uttarakhand sector, a lot of construction activity has been going there, lot of urbanization has been happening. What happens is that most of the debris, or rather we will say the most of the silt plus construction material is dumped into, this is being called as debris, is dumped into the river itself, which further leads to the buildup of silt and construction material in the river. The argument being pushed here is that the authorities are saying we were helpless, but the experts are saying it was not a cloudburst, it was just high rainfall. With high rainfall, the volume of water increased. With the volume of water increasing and so much silt and debris in the waterbed itself, all of that silt and water and debris came down with the heavy flow. So this, what you see here, this flow which you see here, may not be a cloudburst, but all the construction which has happened in upper sector, upper riparian sector, all the silt and debris which was dumped into the river coming down in one gush. It's like an artificial dam which was made, and then the water flow was so much that the artificial dam came down with it. So, a very simple way of imagining this is that if there's a river or if there's a stream of water, you take a little bit of sand and you push sand into its bed quite a lot. Now, till the river in its the volume is constant, nothing will happen. But if there's a gush of a lot of water which is pushed this, the silt will come down very quickly and it will become like a flash flood. So it is more a flash flood than a cloud burst. And the argument is, this is a sleeping disaster which is happening. It is not a glacial outburst. It is not a GLOF. It is not a glacial lake outburst flood. It is not that, because it is no glacier dam was, or the glacial lake, basically the dam was breached. It is pure high volume of water, either because of cloudburst or because of silt and debris coming down. It's a flash flood which happened because of heavy rainfall, which cannot be technically called a cloudburst. Now, again, this topic is for your information. So you can't obviously question the line of the government by saying no, it is not a cloudburst. I'm just telling you that in hilly sectors in Uttarakhand, in Himachal Pradesh, there's a new man-made sleeping disaster which is in multiple cases. If the bed was clean, maybe this would not have happened, and the flood would have just impacted how it is happening in Varanasi right now, how it is happening in Prayagraj right now. But because there was so much, you can say, debris and silt in, which should have been very systematically removed or should have not been there itself, this led to a quick change in the volume of water, which in turn then meant it became a flood which was formed by the cloud. Flash flood and cloudburst are different. See, cloudburst is high rainfall in one sector, which in turn leads to flooding down the stream, or in that whole sector itself is washed off. Flash flood is if a dam breaches, if a river's volume increases very quickly, maybe because of cloudburst, maybe because of dam being breached, maybe because of silting problems. Cloudburst can lead to flash flood. That is an effect of cloudburst. Sanjana, meaning both are different. Cloudburst means too much rainfall in 10 square kilometers, 10 centimeters within 1 hour. But a flash flood is an effect of a cloudburst, right? Uh, it may help you, Sangram. In general knowledge, it will may help you, right? So are we clear? Are we clear about this? Again, this is not a topic to be learned. It has to be understood. What this argument the article is making is government must monitor silt accumulation at vulnerable points. It is a sleeping disaster which could have been avoided. As Anushka says, mapping, construction activity needs to be monitored, early warning systems. Not every disaster in the Uttarakhand sector is a cloudburst. Because if you say it's a cloudburst, then it's an act of God. But we don't know if it is actually an act of God or it is our interventions which made a very simple high rainfall into a flash flood. Right? Okay. Are we sorted with regards to this? Just complicating your understanding so that you have more conceptual clarity on this aspect of how silting and construction activities can further lead to disaster. Now, the next two articles are very simple, straightforward ones. One based on an act which has been passed, the other one which is based on microplastic. The first is that amongst or amidst all the you can say protest on SIR in Rajya Sabha and Operation Sindoor in the Lok Sabha, the government has been able to pass the Carriage of Goods by Sea Bill 2025. Now, this will have an article tomorrow, so I'll be there with you tomorrow discussing all the important, you can say, points and the changes which have happened. But to be very clear, it is going to repeal a colonial act which was brought in 1925, will allow for better trade laws, litigation, transparency, and commercial efficiency. This is what we know as of right now. Tomorrow's newspaper will have the details about it. We will have a discussion about it. Just want you to know that one bill has been passed, which is the Carriage of Goods by the Sea Bill 2025, repealing a colonial. We'll talk about this. We'll talk about this in more detail tomorrow. But this is an update for you that a bill has come through and we'll analyze each of these aspects. But this was done overnight. So this is an update for you that a bill has been passed, one has been repealed. The last is in the Lok Sabha, a written explanation was given by the Minister of Science and Technology, Jitendra Singh. And the question was that where is the plastic on the coastal areas and in the coastal sectors originating? It's called microplastics. What is a microplastic? Any plastic which is from 1 micrometer to 5 millimeter called a microplastic. Primarily, microplastics can be either produced in this small form or they can be large plastics breaking down to become microplastics. And very detrimental for health. Recently, the Food Safety and Standards Authority of India found that in salt and sugar also we are finding small pellets, fibers, and films, which means that microplastics have reached to this point that the toxicity is very high. Now, the Jitendra Singh was asked, where is this microplastic coming from? And the answer to that question is most of them is abandoned and lost fishing gear, which is the microplastic and riverine inputs, they're all fishing gear. Meaning the origin of this microplastic is based on the fisheries sector on both the coasts. On both the coasts, it is the same story. And therefore, what now we need to do is we need to introduce better practices in the fisheries sector, which is that if the fisheries sector is the biggest producer of microplastics in this sector, we need to use better material which does not allow for, you can say, anthropogenic pollution of the seas and the coasts or the rivers in that regard. So again, a very interesting concept where we would believe that the microplastics are coming from single-use plastic, but no, it is actually fishing gear which is abandoned by them, abandoned by the fishers over a period of time, which in turn produces something like that. So therefore, again, an interesting topic which gives us a new insight into man-made ways of destroying this environment. Now, before I close this session, let me give you a summary of what we've done today. This is a wrap up of what we've done. We understood what is called biocharcoal or biochar. How is it produced? It is produced through thermal decomposition in absence of oxygen. And what is it? It is very high density carbon based charcoal. It produces syngas and bio oil with it also. And biochar has multiple usages, is in agriculture, in energy sector, in climate mitigation, in industrial sector. And the issue is that it is not properly recognized, and the challenge is to put in the infrastructure and the R&D to make it feasible. Has a very big potentiality. Second topic we discussed was that the SIR has given us a conclusion that 67 lakh people are either dead or migrated along with some unaccounted for. Now the question is, based on this data, women were more than men. So then we need to check if the death rate of women was higher. No. If their migration was higher than men, that is also not. Therefore, literacy levels is leading to women not having access to filling up the form itself, which in turn leads to their exclusion. Gendered exclusion, which in turn leads to the concept of what is called as a disenfranchisement because of the SIR in that. Ropes, nets, everything, Anushka, yes. Thereafter, we have understood Trump. Rather, nobody can really understand Trump, but 50% from 25%, it has increased to 25%. And thereafter, this 50% increase is because we are importing Russian oil 40%, and Doval is in Russia. Tomorrow we will know what will happen. Thereafter, in Uttarkashi, it is being argued that there was a cloudburst, which has in turn led to multiple people who are unaccounted for missing and 4 people dead. But the question is, was it really a cloudburst or heavy rainfall along with silt, along with construction debris coming down the Kheer Ganga, which in turn led to something like this? There is a new act which has come from for the sea carriage and the what we call as the export sector. We will discuss that tomorrow in more detail. And last but not the least, the microplastics in most of the coastal sector is not based on single-use plastic, which is there, but most of it is abandoned fishing gear such as nets, ropes, and other aspects related to fishing. Got it? Adarsh, you please you email me the paper. I'll see if the questions were like that. I would like to see the paper. I have not seen them. Right? Okay. Thank you so much. See you tomorrow. Same time. I hope that this session made sense. And tomorrow you have to be even more, you can say, interactive. It is not just a one-way interaction, the classroom. Thank you. Take care and bye-bye.